and what Miss Wil Lou Gray started here 100 years ago. At this time, we would like to have the presentation of our colors. Honor Guard, all please stand.
Color guard, light the tent, hook, carry, colors. Forward, march, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. March time, march. Ready, face. Color guard, halt.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, on. Post, color. Right, face. Forward, march.
At this time, we'd like to ask Pastor Caleb Curtis, pastor of Faith Baptist Church in Lawrence, to come and open us up in prayer.
Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for this day that you've given us. Thank you for those that have gathered here together for this historic event, for those in leadership, whether it's in education or in government or just in the sheriff's office, just in each and every of the different aspects that we have. Lord, I ask that you help us to continue in each area of our life, keeping you first and God in our lives and in our country. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I'd like to recognize some special people that we may have in the audience. And I would ask them if they could please stand if their name is called. Miss Velma Austin, Lawrence Adult Ed. Superintendent Dr. Billy Strickland, Lawrence District 55. Jackie Stamps with Anderson Adult Ed 3, 4, and 5. Dr. Joe Macker with Lawrence Adult Ed. Neil Harrison with Ford Adult Ed. Did I miss anyone else in the education field? We want to thank you for coming. And we'd also like to give special recognition to Wil Gray and his wife, Betty. Wil is the great nephew of Miss Wil Lou Gray, and he's from Whiteville, North Carolina. If we could ask them to please stand. I was also told to ask you, what did Miss Wil Lou Gray tell you? Some famous words?
I heard Aunt Wil Lou say many times, when you take an illiterate South Carolinian and teach that person to read and write, you have turned a liability into an asset.
At this time, moving right along, we would like to ask Miss Judy Ribble to come forward. She's the author of a book on Youngs Schoolhouse, and she is Young's local historian on the school and the Youngs community. We're going to ask her to say a few words about why we're here.
I don't think that was me you were talking about. He's attributing much too much. But I did want to speak to you just a moment. If you look inside the program, there is a very brief history. And this picture is Miss Wil Lou standing in front of Youngs School. She passed away in 1984, so she was not here when this marker was placed. But this is her with the preliminary marker, probably sometime in the 70s. So read that, and then if you would like to know more about the school and Dr. Gray, I have written from the printers yet, but we will have a table over here later on with a sign-up sheet if you'd like to be notified when the book is ready. I want to tell you something. In 1911, Miss Wil Lou Gray was offered the position of supervisor of rural schools for Lawrence County. She had just gotten her master's degree from Columbia University in New York City. She talked this job offer over with her family, and particularly her uncle, Dr. Jerome Christopher. She told him she wanted to teach history in a college, but Dr. Christopher's reply was, "Wouldn't you like to make history? You can do that here in Lawrence County." And that's exactly what she did. And now, today, we're celebrating part of that history, the first adult night school in South Carolina. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the celebration of that historic event and a day of fun for all. I want to tell you a little bit more about the book. There is a chapter about the community, how it got its name, a chapter about the school, a chapter about the night school, a chapter on Dr. Gray, and a chapter of items of general interest about the community and about ways of homemaking and farming back in the old days. And the last chapter is memories of people who went to school here. This school closed in 1952. How many, if you don't mind telling your age, if you went to school here, even for 1 or 2 years, raise your hand, we'd like to see. We've got some that went to school here. That's great. As you can well understand, there are a lot of expenses in keeping up a building this old. We have a fund for the upkeep and restoration of the building, and the Kinder Foundation has generously offered to match donations to that fund. We also have a general fund for daily expenses, just paying the bills every month. So we were on the same table with the sign-up sheet for the book. We will have some jars that you can please generously make a donation either to the building fund or the general fund or to both. And we will greatly appreciate it. We have memberships to the Youngs Community Association of $15 for an individual, $25 for a family. We hope you have a wonderful day here at Youngs School.
Thank you. And it's now my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine and a good friend of the Youngs community as well. This time we'd like to ask Senator Danny Burton to come forward.
Thanks, Sheriff. Appreciate it. I want to thank the association for the opportunity to be here this morning. I love the fact that we are able to have a centennial observance, and even members of the community, folks that are here that have direct connectivity. I don't, and I lament it. As a matter of fact, I'm fond of saying, because of a lot of my interests in life, that I was born 100 years too late. Now, every time I say that, someone that's older than I said, "You need to hush. You don't really know." But as we gather here today and recollect and reminisce and celebrate those that have come before us, it is a challenge to live for the future and try to stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. Just as we all have probably done the last day or two, try to take a look at where we are and where we've been and where we could still be without Miss Wil Lou Gray, Dr. Wil Lou Gray. motto of the school, and I don't want to steal Pat's thunder, but why stop learning? I think that's one of your mottos.
It is.
Why stop learning? What if, as Judy's already mentioned, she was not prevailed upon to start her future building right here in Lawrence County? What was at stake? And as someone that's in public policy, or many educators here today, it's really hard for us to contemplate the circumstances of life a century ago and earlier, turn of the 20th century, where education was not the priority it is today. And we have public policy debates today as to what the priority of education is. Whether we prioritize it properly or adequately fund education. If you keep up with education, there's a major 20-plus year discussion, really a legal battle going on regarding education funding in South Carolina. Put yourself back 100 years ago when there was no compulsory education laws, when they were just coming into effect, and when local communities had to take those initiatives and take that leadership role. And the state maybe came along later, following the initiative of local communities. So the state has not always been on the leading edge as far as prioritizing education. So, and there's a lot of circumstances. Economically, we were depressed and having a lot of hardships coming from the 19th century to the 20th century. But nonetheless, when Miss Wil Lou Gray took her initiative to bring adult ed or bring night school to reality fruition, she was fighting against circumstances where there was a cultural acceptance of not even attending school or attending for a few years. If you attained any degree of literacy, it was minimal, just enough to equip you to be a good sharecropper, a better field hand. It's really remarkable where we've come. And Kinsman, your remarks about a better South Carolina turning a liability to an asset, that's profound. We could close the program there. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come and help celebrate this occasion. Just looking at it, I was thankful. I told Pat and David earlier, I looked at the program, saw they were going to have some real speakers here today, and I felt like the burden was off. But I do want to thank them and acknowledge what the state of South Carolina has done to continue the legacy of Miss Wil Lou Gray. I think if I looked at the budget right, I went back last night and tried to look at it, Dave, I think we had about a 10% increase in y'all's budget. We're close to it in this current fiscal year. And Pat, I know that at the Opportunity School, you were probably not, unlike districts, you have a limited revenue stream, so you're more dependent on general fund dollars and other EI dollars as well. But I appreciate the fact that both the Opportunity School, the Wil Lou Gray Opportunity School, and Adult Higher Ed are represented here this afternoon, this morning. I congratulate the association on the maintenance of this building. And Judy, I want to not only sign up, I want to pay for at least 2 copies, one for my home and another for my coffee table in my office as well. Thanks so much.
At this time, another great friend and a great member of the Youngs community. He's always fighting for you. Anytime you call him, he's always there. Representative Mark Willis.
Good morning. Thank you all for having me be a part of this wonderful celebration. As many of you know, Miss Wil Lou Gray, for generations, she fought for education, not only in our county, but in our whole state. As a little girl, I read her book that Miss Birch gave me to use for a little bit. As a little girl, she came from a rather prominent family, lived on the West Main area of Lawrence, and she she was saddened as a little girl to see her friends in the classroom or other friends not be able to sign their name, because she had learned to sign her name beautifully, and her friends and neighbors would just put an X where their names were supposed to be. But you know, if it were not for that desire of Miss Wil Lou Gray, I wouldn't be able to read today, and I'll tell you why. My grandfather was part of the group that she educated. She educated my grandfather in the around probably about 1913 and 1914 over in the Dallas community. So my family is very appreciative of the heritage that she's given us, because perhaps maybe if my grandfather had not been one of her students, then for generations later we would not have the abilities that we do in our family today. I'm very proud to tell you that I'm the first generation college graduate of my family, and for some reason I feel deep in my heart that that is part of the desire of Ms. Dr. Wil Lou Gray, and her desire to educate not only her neighbors but her whole community in the state of South Carolina. Today, Senator Bird and I brought with us a recognition from our State House, and Ms. Birch, I'd like to give it to you if you don't mind. Senator Bird and I just have a recognition from our state recognizing Youngs Community School for 100 years in this community, and we want to congratulate each of you who worked very hard to, as Senator Bird said, to maintain this building. This building has been a beacon in this community, as we know from our generations, for a number of years. But as we can see today and looking through our heritage, it's been a beacon for our whole state and perhaps our whole nation as far when it comes to education. Thank you.
Like Judy and I had really planned on speaking, but you know, we women, we like to talk. One of the people that I had contacted about coming to this event today, and he really tried hard to come, but as you know, there are a lot of football games, and there's so much activity that is going on today that it did take a lot of people away. But when I read the beginning of the book, I saw that former Governor Riley knew her and had, in fact, she died during his administration. He did go, before she died, he would go to the nursing home to visit her. He spoke at her memorial service. But he sent me an email and he said, I am so sorry, I cannot come. He's on the board at Furman and they're having homecoming today. And he tried time-wise to make a point of coming. He was very adamant about coming. But the traffic and the time he had to be there, he just couldn't make it. But he did have some words that he wanted me. He said, please inform those present of my deep respect for Dr. Gray and what she meant for South Carolina adult education over the years. Dr. Gray was a small lady, and if you'll look at the picture that the Director Smith brought, she is standing up. She is indeed a small lady, but she has a big heart and a vision for the cause she truly believed in and was determined to make it happen. Lawrence County should be proud of the school and the many people who had the opportunity to gain an education. Thank you.
You know, I think too, before we continue on, Miss Mary and all the committee that put this together, they have put a lot of hours in making phone calls, letters. A lot of you know that what they've done to present this, and I think we ought to give them all, the entire committee. At this time, we'd like to ask Director Pat Smith to come forward. He's the director of Wil Lou Gray Opportunity School. He has a few words to share with us.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Pleasure for me to be here. I've been at Wil Lou Gray Opportunity School for 40 years. I began work there in 1975. I finished Newberry College and went right to Wil Lou Gray. I knew Dr. Gray. Persistent is the word that I would use to describe her. Mr. Bird and Mr. Willis, I've heard it said before, she was aggravated as chewing gum in the air. Trying to get stuff out of the legislature. And I can attest to that. As a young man, I was given the job of being her attaché when she came to campus. She regularly attended board meetings. You know, we talk about E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. Dr. Gray would be at board meetings. And these two gentlemen can tell you it's hard to get 170 people make a decision, but it's hard to get 12 people make a decision. And whenever something would be going in, there'd be a lot of controversy, a lot of debate on it. She'd go like this, move on. She'd go like this, and move on. And so she could control our board and made it happen. One thing that she knew more than anything else, she stated, South Carolina cannot rise above its level of her undereducated citizens. That is true. It was true 100 years ago. It's true today. 1923, she stated, she started a Write Your Name campaign. And I know Dr. Strickland will tell you right now, we're back there now. We're teaching them cursive writing again because they can't sign their name. 100 years. Over here I have some memorabilia. One of them is a picture from one of the schools in the early 20s, and it's a chalkboard that says, I can read, I can write, I am happy. And you know, to me, that's an opening when you can read, you can write, and you're happy. How simple can it be than that? She was always very, very interested in education as I knew her, always coming up with ideas. She'd go see Dr. Willis, who was director at that time. Of course, he would funnel it down to me to put in what she wanted to do. And it was like machine gun of ideas all the time. And you know, Youngs School, I wanted to read, I've got a couple of books, but this is the one that I kind of read. It's South Carolina's Wil Lou Gray, published in '63. I want to read you a passage in here about Youngs School and the Youngs community. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just about a little couple of paragraphs, and it starts with her desire fostered action. For an adult education experience, she chose Youngs Township, where she had taught and where she knew people well. In her report to the State Superintendent of Education dated July 1915 and entitled A Night School Experiment in Lawrence County, she says, after consultation with James H. Sullivan, County Superintendent of Education, it was decided to make a trial of night school work in Youngs Township. From here, her national model of adult education began. That is something that we're all proud of. When I walked in this building, you can just almost hear 100 years ago, kids in here and Dr. Gray in here, and she was as persistent with them as she was with us. I can know what she did with them. But, you know, I was always privileged to work there and will continue to be privileged to work there and continue her spirit of educating the undereducated. And go to work every day. I was at work yesterday. I'll be at work Monday. And I love the work that Dr. Gray did and love the work we do now. And one final thought. Senator Vernon, if you've taken a look at our budget, then you know it's not high enough. So, that's no pressure on it. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'll be here for a few minutes, but I've got some memorabilia over here. One of the things she liked to do was she believed in pilgrimage education. We call it field trips now. She took them to Washington, D.C. There's a picture of her with Herbert Hoover in the White House Rose Garden. Now, how many kids can go to the White House and read in the Rose Garden with the president? Not many. So she has a letter there that I have a copy of that she had written Eleanor Roosevelt to come speak to the school with Eleanor Roosevelt's personal reply. So she believed in a higher level of education for everybody. And that is no more true than it is today. And thank you all for having me here.
Thank you for those inspiring words. And moving along to our guest speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. David Stout, Jr. He's the Director of South Carolina Adult Education.
Thank you. Appreciate the
introduction. Appreciate your service and your fellow officer. My son works for the Greenwood County Sheriff's Office as a 911 dispatcher. So I appreciate what you do. Thank you very much for the invitation, Ms. Birch. It's hard to believe, 100 years ago, 36,500 days ago, history was made on this very site where we are today. The historic event of establishing a night school program for undereducated adults in Lawrence County has grown to become a program that serves approximately 35,000 adults in South Carolina each year. And I'm honored to be part of this very special occasion today. 25 years ago, Dr. Walter Tobin was the State Director of Adult Education at that time, and I believe he participated in a very similar event here at the same location. In 1987, Dr. Tobin asked me to join his staff, which I did, and in 2007, I became the State Director of Adult Education. Sometimes I can hardly believe how lucky I am to be leading a program that has such a positive impact on the lives of not just only the students we serve, but their children and their other family members. I'm amazed at the passion that our adult education teachers and directors and volunteers have for the students that they serve. Working with students that have no reading skills or very reading skills is truly a challenge, but it's a challenge that we have met. The satisfaction of seeing someone that has had a lifetime of frustration and finally making progress and being successful is worth every bit of the time that you're involved. And those of you that are in adult education that are here today know exactly what I'm talking about. The United States Census tells it that there's about 500,000 adults in South Carolina that don't have a high school education. There are some groups that say it may be as many as 600,000. In our office, we use the number of about 400,000. We target individuals basically from 17 to 64. We figure those are pretty much the prime working ages of people, and that's the group that we concentrate a lot of our efforts on. Our legislature provides us guidance that 30% of our adult ed funds has to be spent serving 17 to 21-year-old students. That's the age group that has 30 or 40 years ahead of them of working time. And if we can get them back into our programs, get a high school credential, maybe a work keys credential, and get them on to technical college or the military or to work, then they will become productive members of society. They had dropped out of school for whatever reason, and when they finally make that decision, I need to do something better in my life, they come back to adult education, and we are there to help them. On behalf of our State Superintendent of Education, Molly Spearman, and the Office of Adult Education, I would like to thank you for the work that you have done to keep Miss Wil Lou Gray's memory alive and the work that you do here in this community. But if you'll excuse me for a second, I'm going to brag a little bit about what we're doing right now in our adult ed programs. I'm so proud of the effort that our 50 school district adult education programs, our 5 community-based organizations, and also the Department of Corrections does in helping adults that need a second chance. As I mentioned earlier, approximately 35,000 adults are served in our program each year. Between 5,000 and 6,000 of those are non-English speakers, and that number is growing each year, as you know. Starting in 2013, South Carolina was one of 4 pilot states that worked with the group ACT to establish a program called Certified Work-Ready Communities. It's an economic development initiative, and there was about 8 or 10 state agencies and the governor's office that went together to develop this program for South Carolina. ACT asked us to consider hand-picking 5 or 6 counties and see if you can get them to begin the process to become certified work-ready. And the purpose of this initiative is for someone that is looking maybe to move to South Carolina, to start a business. You know, we've got the Boeings that have come to town, the Michelin Michelin's, the BMWs. We want to have a work-ready workforce that they know can do the job. We said we're not handpicking 5 or 6 counties. We're going to open this up to every county in South Carolina to go toward this initiative. 3 weeks ago, ACT had their annual conference in Charleston, and they announced that 39 of South Carolina's 46 counties had achieved that certified work-ready community status, and Lawrence County is one of those 39, and you're to be congratulated for that. Another aspect of the adult education, one of the main things that we do is working with partners. 2 of our best partnerships, one is with vocational rehabilitation. We have adult education classes in 26 of 28 vocational rehabilitation centers, including here in Lawrence County. And with those individuals, we work mainly with helping them earn a career readiness certificate. The career readiness certificate is used by a lot of employers in the interview process. If you do not have a level, a silver or gold work-ready community certified career readiness certificate, they will not even give you an interview. They need to know that you have the skills to do the job. In the last 10 years, over 70,000 adults have earned a work-ready community or a career readiness certificate. I get those two confused all the time, say them real fast. Through our adult education programs. That is one of the major things that we do. And also, working with people that are on food stamps. We started an initiative 2 years ago with the SNAP program, serving individuals, like I said, that are on food stamps. And in the last 2 years, over 1,000 individuals that are receiving food stamps have passed the GED test, and over 4,000 have earned a career readiness certificate, which will hopefully open the doors to allow them to obtain a job. We are very proud of what's going on with our GED program. You may have heard the GED test changed in 2014. It is no longer a paper pencil test. It is a computer-based test. There were a lot of people said that we will never pass that test. It's too hard. Our people are no good with computers. Well, I think we're kind of proving them wrong. When we were using the paper pencil test, our average passing rate was 78%. From January 1st this year, we are on 76%. We've issued 300 more GED credentials than we did the entire year of 2014. So I think we're proving that the folks in South Carolina are smarter than what you think they are. They can pass this test. And the good thing about this new GED test, the difficulty level, is when individuals leave our program and they apply to the technical colleges, they're being able to bypass the remedial programs, the developmental programs. They go right into regular college courses, which saves them a lot of money. They're not burning up their Pell Grant on a course that really is not helping them that much. Adult education in South Carolina would not be what it is today if it wasn't for that first step 100 years ago. The work started by Dr. Wil Lou Gray and continued by Mr. J.K. East, who was the State Director of Adult Education in the mid-1960s when federal funds first became available for adult education programs. The state and the nation would not be the same. In closing, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I would also like to say that I would really like to be invited back to the next celebration 25 years from now. However, some of you better check my email address. It may have changed by then because I may be retired. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Stout. At this time, we're going to have our honor guard come forward. They will escort our historical marker out to the front of the schoolhouse. You are asked if you are able and willing to follow the processional through there and to the front as they place the marker in its rightful place. This time we've asked the honor guard to please come forward.
Oh, God. Okay. Forward. March. Left. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. One time.
If y'all would like to follow the honor guard, they will bring the sign. We will conclude the ceremony outside. Thank you.